Hi there, Francois.
Marcus, earlier in the week when we got news of the first sanctions, Russian markets didn't move that much. Today, though, they really felt the pinch.
Yes, indeed. You're right there, Francois. As Western countries are stepping up their measures over Crimea, Russian stocks have been taking a beating. Moscow's MICEX was down around 3% at one point during trading on Friday. It recovered some of those losses, but the index still ended 1% lower. The standoff over Crimea has cost Russian stock markets dearly in the past few weeks. The MICEX is down around 9% just this month, and Reuters, the news agency, has been looking at the figures, and it says around $70 billion have flowed out of Russian stocks since the 1st of March. Meanwhile, credit ratings agencies, they're firing off warnings about the Russian economy. Fitch says its outlook on Russian debt has gone from stable to negative. It follows a similar move by Standard & Poor's. Fitch says it reflects the potential impact of Western sanctions on the Russian economy. Now, the EU has issued the names of 12 Russian officials who will be subjected to asset freezes and travel bans. And those names, for instance, includes a deputy prime minister in Russia. It follows an EU summit in Brussels, the publication of those names. Leaders also agreed to accelerate their efforts to reduce Europe's reliance on Russian energy. Those EU leaders, they've asked the European Commission for a detailed plan by June. The efforts to diversify Europe's energy will be easier said than done, though, and analysts warn it could take decades. Russia stands for around a third of the EU's oil and gas, and even if other suppliers like Norway and Algeria were able to cover some of the slack, they won't be able to cover all of it. At the summit in Brussels, German Chancellor Angela Merkel opened up the door to higher imports of shale gas from the United States.
If the United States should decide to export gas won from fracking, they would need the infrastructure for that. This could be a possible building stone of this energy mix. What was also important in our discussions was that not all of the energy that is needed needs to be imported. That means that energy efficiency and savings are important too.
Now, we've talked about Russian stocks, so let's also take a look at how stocks elsewhere have been trading this Friday at the end of the trading week. In the United States this hour, stocks, they're mainly in positive territory, with only the Nasdaq losing some ground, down 0.6%. This as investors, they're digesting a slew of better than expected reports on the US economy this week. We heard on Thursday, for instance, of fewer than expected jobless claims in the US economy last week. In Europe, at the close, we saw green arrows, at least in Western Europe, with the London FTSE gaining 0.25%. European markets, they were seen to follow New York's lead after that better than expected US data. Take a look at the MICEX. Once again, it was down 1% at the close of trade over in Moscow. Let's talk you through a few other stories that we're following for you. Shares in the German airline Lufthansa came under pressure on Friday. This as pilots at the flag carrier voted overwhelmingly in favor of going on strike. They're currently facing off with the company asking for higher pay and improved conditions. The date for the potential strike has not been set yet, but unions pledged not to do so during the busy Easter holiday season. Here in France, the mail-order firm La Redoute is in danger of shutting down. It comes as unions have refused to sign up to a plan to reduce employees by 1,200. They weren't happy with the redundancy package offered by management. Managers now say they're going to court, opening the door to a possible liquidation of the entire company. And the currency exchange Mt. Gox says it's found 200,000 forgotten bitcoins with a market value of around $120 million. The Japan-based company filed for bankruptcy protection at the end of February. It blamed the loss of hundreds of thousands of bitcoins, saying they had probably been stolen. Mt. Gox says it found some of the missing bitcoins in an old format online wallet that it thought was empty. 650,000 bitcoins remain unaccounted for. Okay, Francois, remind me to go look into my online wallets. Perhaps I'll find $120 million if I'm lucky.
Oh, well, when it comes to virtual cash, I'm rich. Don't worry about it, Marcus. Many thanks. Marcus Carlson with more business news later on. Time now for sports. The big story this Friday, the Champions League draw, including Manchester United against the defending champions Bayern Munich and Paris Saint-Germain versus Chelsea.
Paris Saint-Germain have been drawn against 2012 winners Chelsea in the Champions League quarter.